Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to the 1916 Company. What I love about our collector conversations is all of the new stories I hear, because every watch has a story to tell, and through its collector, every watch tells that story. Chris, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Tim. Thank you so much.
Now, you started a little bit different, because a lot of folks can remember loving watches almost from the time they were in diapers, but you got a late start, and it was a very specific start. What was the cause?
Absolutely. So I didn't think about watches one iota until I was about 20 years old, when I came across my late grandfather's Rolex 1630, which is the oyster quartz looking Rolex in the oyster quartz case, but it's actually a mechanical Datejust. So I came across that watch. I had no idea really, never thought about mechanical watches versus quartz battery-powered watches, but instinctually, I just started winding, and I saw that second hand start moving for the first time, and that was all the spark I needed to kind of build this passion into mechanical watches.
Okay, so now you're about 30 years old, correct?
Yeah.
So about how long was it before you dipped another toe into the waters? Because there was that first watch, it had a lot of family significance, but you weren't really a watch collector at that point. So how long did it take for you to kind of build curiosity towards what it really meant to be part of the watch community and start assembling a collection?
Sure. So as soon as that moment with that 1630 Rolex, I started just diving into researching mechanical watches, how they worked, that model specifically. And because it was such a unique, rare, esoteric model for Rolex, I had to go to, sites that curated more to watch hobbyists than just general, Rolex websites. Finding out the history of that watch, about, you have to learn about oyster quartzes then, quartz watches, quartz crisis. You start building up all these things as you go down one little rabbit hole. So I immediately started researching, finally making my first big boy purchase at 22, 2 years later, after I'd finished paying off my student loans. I bought a Rolex Hulk.
This was about 2017?
2017, exactly that, yeah. So that was the first kind of plunge into the hobby with my own money.
Now, right out of the gate, you start with a watch that probably only exists, if we're talking survivors, in a few hundred copies. So you had to rely on communities almost immediately. Was it that which drew you in, or was it perhaps the fact that you're in tech and maybe there's more of a permanence to a mechanical watch that's hard to find in technology?
Absolutely. Technology is changing so quickly. Last year's model becomes obsolete very quickly. The beauty of these watches is their permanence, their ability to stand the test of time, to hold stories, hold memories, hold people. A watch is such an intimate object. It's touching you. It's touching your skin. It's with you when you're doing things. Your movement winds it, it powers it. And to hold his Rolex and feel, the memories that he made with them, the power that he gave it to make it work, it was a special kind of bonding experience. Even though he'd already passed on, you feel that with a mechanical watch because of that permanence. So that's what really drew me in. I'm sure so many collectors are drawn to the romanticism of the hobby, the romanticism of these pieces. You kind of have to be romantic about it to, spend the stupid money that we do on these things. So definitely it hit me really, really hard, Tim.
Now that first watch, it almost wasn't yours.
Correct. So I have an older brother and a younger sister. So that watch was willed to my older brother. But I felt I deserved it because I cared more about it and I cared more about the history. So I made a deal with my brother that I would buy him a watch that he'd actually enjoy wearing. I bought him a Omega Aquaterra, the one, from one of the Bond films, in exchange for that watch, so that I could be the steward of that important piece. But then, a couple years later, my sister, Mary Hope, she graduated from Notre Dame, and that watch's original owner, my grandfather, Grandpa George, he went to Notre Dame in 1948. His daughter, my mom, went to Notre Dame in 1979. I went to Notre Dame in 2016, and then my sister in 2020. So I took that Rolex, I engraved University of Notre Dame on the back with all our initials, my grandfather's, my mother's, mine, my sister's, the years we graduated, room at the bottom for somebody else, maybe down the line, who graduates from there. And I presented that watch to her on her graduation day.
Well, very cool. And so that was your first step into the world of watches. Now you started with Rolex, first through family and then by choice, but you eventually moved on from Rolex. How did that happen and where did it lead?
So after that Hulk, the next big purchase I made was this Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 15300, which is still my favorite watch of all time. This specific iteration of it. I love the design of the jumbo, the 5402. The 39 millimeters on a Royal Oak I think is perfect. And back in 2018 when I was considering buying a Royal Oak, the ones that were mainstream were the 15400s, the 41 millimeter ones. So I was really wanted to buy one of those. I went to a store and I tried one of those on. Really loved it, loved the design. But they said, you know, we have a pre-owned one in the back. Maybe you want to try that one too. And that was this 15300. And as soon as I put on the 39 millimeter Royal Oak, you know, you get hit by a thunderbolt when you put on a watch that you know that is meant for you. And I've never had a feeling like it before, and I still haven't had a feeling like it since. This watch is perfect. It's kind of corny to say, but it feels like my wrist's soulmate. When I put it on, it just feels like it belongs there. I know that sounds so corny, but you know.
I've been there.
But this has a lot of features that original jumbo wouldn't have. That makes it better for my everyday life. First of all, it has a running seconds hand. I think you might have coined the term dead dial when a watch doesn't have anything moving on it for you to know that it's actually
hours
working.
and minutes.
So this has a running seconds. It has a quick set date. I could not believe when I found out that the jumbo and even the 15202s did not have quick set dates. It has a full balance bridge on the back, so it's a little bit more robust bracelet. A little bit thicker, but still very, very thin. So, for all those reasons, I think this is still my favorite watch and my favorite watch of all time.
Do you still get that thrill when you put it on?
Absolutely. When I'm considering another watch, I'll put this on again and, forget about anything else that I was looking at. It really, putting this on just feels right to me. If I was like a president and I was having my portrait painted, this would be the watch that I'd be wearing in that portrait because it's what I want to be remembered as, being the watch of Christian Clark, right? We all dream of being a one-watch collector. Everyone has their grandfather who wore the same watch for 50 years, and that watch is part of them. And I feel like this one, for me, I hope is that legacy for my wrist.
So now, before we continue sort of the sequential account of your collecting, you've got a philosophy of collecting that I think is really important. This is going to be your steel sports watch, your integrated bracelet sports watch, but how do you assemble your collection? Because I know you have this idea of having a one and only.
Sure. So I realized very early on through trial and error that I cannot have two watches that are so similar in my collection because I'm just going to reach for the one that I like better every single time, and the other one's just going to, collect dust. For example, I love this watch so much as an integrated steel bracelet sports watch that similar things like a Japek Antarctique, like ice blue dial, I love that watch, but I could not own both of them because they're just too similar. And for me, Cartier Santos medium, the same thing, integrated bracelet steel sports watch. Every watch that I have, for me, serves its own unique purpose. It's different enough from the other pieces where when I'm in the mood for something specific, I can pick up the right watch for that purpose and not have to fight in my mind about two options.
Because, we've all done it. Inevitably, you have two versions of the same watch. You pick the one you like better and you wear that full time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, you like to pair watches with occasions, and that's something I see with a lot of collectors, but you kind of took it to the next level with your Japanese watches. So kind of take me through the story of how these watches came to be.
Absolutely. So I went through a journey with Grand Seiko. 5 years ago, when I was learning more about Grand Seiko, I really had no interest in the brand. Back when Seiko was big at the 12 o'clock and Grand Seiko was signed at the 6 o'clock.
When they were both on the same dial.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't really feel a connection to that brand. Spring Drive was something else that I really, it was a step in between mechanical and quartz, and I thought it needed to make a decision. So I didn't really feel that romantic pull to Grand Seiko, but I think in those 5 years since then, Grand Seiko has been doing a tremendous job in, making watches that really call to me, that romantic storytelling that they do, the nature-inspired dials. Every dial has a story. Every, those 24 Seki, those seasons in Japan, they really, hit you with that marketing, and it really worked on me. So in those 5 years, I've fallen in love with the brand. They make a lot of dials that I loved, starting with the that U.S. edition blue one.
The Kurazuri?
The Kurazuri, yeah, blue dial. That one was the first one that I was like, oh my gosh, this brand is doing something special. And then, in parallel, I tried sushi, raw fish sushi, for the first time maybe like 2 years ago, and I fell in love with that too. So, with all that, Japanese emotions piling up in me, me and two of my friends took a vacation to Japan last year to experience all these things. They're both into watches too. I had the mindset going in that I wanted to buy a Grand Seiko in Japan when I was on my trip. I didn't know exactly which one to get yet, but when I was on that trip, in the early stages of that trip, maybe second day, third day, I was like, I need to get something in Japan, just something to wear on the trip. So I found this purple G-Shock in a mall in Ginza in Tokyo. And I love this color. I love pastels. I love purple. It kind of stands out. So I picked this up one of the first days of the trip, wore it. It was so hot in Japan that trip, late October, still super hot. So this was a perfect companion. It's so light. It's, you wear it with anything. So this was great for that. But then later in the trip in Osaka, we were in the Grand Seiko boutique, and there's a language barrier in Japan, but all you need to say is Omiwatari, and they will bring it out to you. It just felt like a perfect occasion, a watch that was born in Japan, that I had to go and retrieve it from there. Since then, I've loved getting to know, through your videos, how spring drive works. I figured get a movement that a brand is known for, famous for. Getting a mechanical Grand Seiko might not have felt the same as getting a spring drive one, so I thought this was the perfect choice. This dial is beautiful. Again, their storytelling, this Omiwatari meaning the path of the gods, because Lake Suwa, when it freezes over, these cracks form as if a god is walking over them, and that's what the dial reflects too. I fell for the marketing. It's beautiful to me, and when I look at this dial, I think of that trip, and I think about the amazing ramen that I had the night that I bought this in Osaka to really cap off this experience. So I love this watch, and I love everything that it represents.
And let's be clear, you had to make a sacrifice within the collection to bring a dress watch in. A dress watch had to go out, and what was that watch?
Yes, I had a Patek Philippe 5038G, which is a perpetual calendar, black dial, white Roman numerals, beaded bezel, white gold, 36 millimeters. I love that watch, but that was my, leather strap dress watch, thin. When this came in, and I felt how this kind of fit my wrist and the way it made me feel when I had it on, I could not have both, that parity happened. So I ended up selling that Patek Philippe in order to make way for the dress watch that I loved the most.
That's a very cool story, and again, it's something you can keep forever. You've got a great link binding you not just to Grand Seiko, but also Japan. Now you know all about Lake Suwa outside the Shinshu Watch Studio.
At least what I read on the Grand Seiko website about it, yeah.
But it's great that they do a good job of curating their history, because it's almost like the opposite of the Japanese automakers. Toyota's going to make a truck for the United States and a hatchback for Europe and a K car for Japan. This is deeply rooted in Japanese culture and lore.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's interesting that you sort of caught the bug with Japanese watches in Japan. You brought it back to the United States, and then we wound up somehow improbably with 2 pink watches, both tied to your birthday. So why don't we start with the G-Shock, since we're on the subject of Japanese watches, and then explain how this improbable story played out with the Tudor Chrono pink.
Yeah, so that Tudor Chrono pink, I saw the press releases earlier in the year. I loved that dial. That pink is perfect for me. There was that Grand Seiko Seasons collection that had the pink dial, but when you see that in person, it's really more silvery and only pink in certain lights, versus this is saturated, perfect cherry blossom pink. When I saw that watch, I have a group chat at my friends for watches specifically. So I put that in the chat and I said, I'm buying this as soon as one becomes available. I turned 30 in July 3rd of this year. And July 4th, I have my friends over at my apartment so we could watch the fireworks from my balcony. And they had bought me this pink Casio G-Shock as a interim watch for me to enjoy before I get the pink Chrono, the pink Tudor. So that was really special of them to think of me. to gift me a watch. I love that watch too. I just golfed with it this week. It's perfect for occasions like that. However, it was almost good and bad timing. So a week before my 30th birthday, I was in Scarsdale with my parents at a guitar store because my dad loves guitars. And we saw that there was a watch dealer on the street in Scarsdale. So we walked in, they were a Tudor dealer, and I saw they had the pink Chrono in the case. I couldn't believe it, my first time seeing it in person. And it was even more beautiful in person than I saw in the press releases. I love that Jubilee. I love those Daytona style pushers, those screw-down pushers. I put it on and I just loved it. I said, I would like to buy this right now. And the nice salesman, Matt there, actually the owner of the store.
Matt, you're the man.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. He said, this one's actually, just for display right now. It's the first one we got in. We want give people a chance to see it in person. And when we get more in, we'll start selling them. But if you want to put your name on the list, we'd love to have you. So I said, yes, absolutely. Put my name on. I asked, how can I make sure that I have a chance at this? And he said, well, come back a couple times, remind us who you are and that you're still interested, every now and then. So I waited about like 5 days before I came back, actually on my 30th birthday, because on my birthday, I just want to look at watches. It's my favorite thing to do. So I came in, I saw it again in the case, said hi to Matt again. Again, I told him how much I loved the look of it. I let it slip that it was my 30th birthday actually that day. And he said, let me just check something for you. I'm gonna see when we're gonna get another one in. So I went in the back. After a couple minutes, he came out. He said, you know what, we're getting another one pretty soon. So I'd love to sell this one to you right now on your birthday. I was so taken aback by his generosity to do that for me. I asked him why he was so generous with it. He said, when I come in the week before with my dad, who's also into watches, he saw the excitement in both our eyes about us seeing the watch for the first time, trying it out, taking pictures of it. He saw that passion, not of a flipper mentality, but of someone who's going to love this watch forever and market a special occasion with it. So he said that was the reason why he sold it to me. I think it shows the power of, when you meet other people in this hobby who are also passionate and they see that you're passionate, that's where you find those real connections with those people. And it's evident when you meet someone who loves this hobby and is going to buy this because it's special to them. And because it marked my 30th birthday, there's no way I'm ever selling it. It's always going to be special to me.
So now, before we jump any further into the collection, I think I want to pick up on that thread of community that you spoke of and experiences. You have 3 defining experiences you told me about. One is that first watch, one has to do with watchmaking, and one actually has to do with Patek Philippe in Geneva. Tell me about how these in-person experiences really shaped your relationship with watches and the community itself.
Yeah, so 3 distinct memories I have that kind of really put me in the fold of this hobby. One is that first moment with my grandfather's Rolex where I wound it and saw that second hand start moving. The second was I took a watchmaking 101 class at the Horological Society of New York, where you get to take apart a movement and put it back together. And that really shows you how tiny these parts are in this watch, because you see a movement in the watch and it kind of looks, bigger than a quarter size. It still, looks small. When you're taking the screws out, you're taking the bridges out, you're looking at a balance wheel, trying to maneuver it with little tiny tweezers and a little tiny screwdriver. It really puts into perspective how difficult it is to maneuver these movements, to put them together, design them, finish them. You get a new appreciation for the hobby and why a mechanical watch has a lot more, romance to it than, something made, a quartz watch or something, cheaper. And the third one, I took a trip to Geneva and I went to the Patek Philippe Museum, and that just, hit it home. I almost cried in there, really. It's such beautiful stuff. The history of that brand, some of their older, animatronic clocks that they have, enameling, engraving, they're just gorgeous. Those pieces from the 40s and 50s from them, it really pulls at the heartstrings, and that was a magical experience, for lack of a better word. So those 3 events, I think, really were the foundation to my love for this hobby.
It's really great when you go to the Patek Museum because it's 500 years and it's so not self-serving. Like it doesn't feel like a commercial for Patek Philippe. Most of the watches are not Patek, and all of them work. They've got watchmakers on staff to make sure all of the watches are functional timepieces.
It's, a transcendent experience for a watch lover to go in there and see the breadth of what is possible in watch and clockmaking, really.
Okay, so now community type stuff. Where do you get your information, your news? Where do you find people to chat with when there just isn't a person near you who's interested in a watch of interest, or you have to rely on someone for a first-hand experience for something you might want to buy?
Well, besides your amazing videos, Tim, every Tuesday morning on my way to work, I listen to your Monday show in my car. It's great every time. I think your inventory shows, for the past 5-6 years I've been watching those. It's a great way to find new pieces, see things you've never considered before, see them on wrist, see the history about them. So that's been great. I think finding a watch dealer that you trust and that you like is also important to get exposure to a lot of pieces. You're always buying the dealer more than you're buying the watch. You have to, especially when you're buying pre-owned, to trust that if it's not working, they're going to take care of you. So that's been really helpful. I have friends in this industry too who have been just so generous with their knowledge, with their experience. We were actually at a block party a few years ago at my parents' house, and we ran into a new neighbor, and he says, "Oh, you like watches? I'm the head of the watchmaking department in Rockefeller Center for Patek Philippe."
This is just a neighbor randomly?
Yeah, random neighbor. Laurent Jeannot, living with us in New Jersey. So he was kind enough to take me to the facility at Rockefeller Center, where you put on the little booties on your shoes to go into the watchmaking part, and you're seeing people doing services on Patek Philippe watches. A class of students were learning how to finish pieces, make tools by hand. That generosity really kind of brought me into that brand and into watchmaking in general, seeing people fixing these watches. Him telling me that no matter how old the Patek Philippe is, they will make parts for it if they have to service it. It's kind of, again, that romanticism about the hobby that I love so much.
And you're coming from a place where you have Audemars Piguet, you've had Patek Philippe in your collection, you have Omega, and I guess you could even say, in a way, you've sort of got vintage, because between the Speedmaster Mark 40, Mickey Mouse here, and your travel clock from Tiffany, you do sort of have like an emerging collection within a collection. So just tell me about how you sort of got onto that track. I guess this watch had to be the first.
So this watch, incredible story with this watch. So this Mickey Mouse watch, my Uncle Roy, on his 4th birthday in 1952, got this watch as a gift. And there's a great photo of him, in his Sunday best with this watch on, posing for a picture. And he loved that watch, as a little kid. And he lost it when he was a teenager. Just, they couldn't find it. My dad, his brother, 13 years younger than my uncle, when my dad was in his 20s, he was repainting my grandparents, his parents' hallway. So he's taking out the vents in the hallway, and he found this watch in an air intake vent in the hallway. And kind of like in Ratatouille, when the critic, eats and then gets back to the past where he was a child, my dad had a vision of remembering when he was about 2 years old, 2 or 3, he had this watch in his hand and it fit perfectly in the vent. So he just shoved it in there, and it got lost there for 20 years until he found it again in his 20s, painting that hallway. So this was in there for so long. My uncle and my dad presented it to me a couple years ago as a gift. And I like to think of this watch as, as it was a witness to my dad's entire childhood, as literally a fly on the wall in that house, listening to, family dinners, hearing my Grandma Shirley cook in her kitchen. We went to that house every Christmas, every Easter when I was a kid on Long Island.
And it was there the whole time, and you never knew.
Well, it was there when he was a kid, not when I was a kid, but this watch reminds me of him and my uncle so much. It has, I have nothing like this, talk about lack of parity. A watch from the 50s, a Mickey Mouse watch. I feel like Robert Langdon from the Dan Brown books, who has a Mickey Mouse watch when I wear this one. And I try to wear it every year on my dad's birthday. Also, there's a crack in the crystal. I have no idea how I'd ever replace this crystal.
Oh, no, don't.
It's a tonneau case. It has the chunkiest whine, too. You can hear that, but it's definitely, probably the most special piece of my collection.
So a family heirloom, vintage, aged plexi, tonneau, unsigned crown Mickey Mouse watch. Yeah, that's a niche genre right there. This is maybe a little bit more mainstream with the Speedy Mark 40, as they sometimes call it. It's a date full calendar. It's a 24-hour display. It's an automatic Speedmaster. It's a 1996 debut. It's a very uncommon watch. How did you get this?
Yeah, so it's hard to be in the watch hobby without knowing about this watch because of its, this is Ben Clymer's grandfather's watch, right? They made the Hodinkee 10-year edition, I think, to revamp this. So I always knew about this watch, and it wasn't until I actually found one in a store and I put it on my wrist that I felt that this was the watch for me. This watch for me just screams 1990s. It reminds me of my childhood. It reminds me of like Nickelodeon during that time, all that, Kenan and Kel. I don't know, something about the colors, the little airplane on the date pointer. It's a vintagey feel, I guess like me now that I'm 30. Same time period as me. And I've always loved the Speedmaster, but I always liked them on other people's wrists more than my own. So this was a great chance to finally own a Speedmaster, but one that was special to me. And actually, another kind of corny thing, I bought this, I remember in early December, and just to make it feel more special, I wrapped it up and I gave it to myself for Christmas. So it took about 3 weeks for me to actually wear this after buying it because I just wanted to feel like a Christmas present to myself.
Well, it is a long-standing precept among watch collectors that the best gift is the one you give yourself.
Yes, I know what I like best.
And I'll be honest, this is better looking than the Hodinkee 10th anniversary version because the graphics here correspond to different functions, whereas the Hodinkee version is a standard caliber 1861. It doesn't have the 24-hour dial, it doesn't have the triple calendar. This to me works better, and I like yours a whole lot more.
Thank you.
I also like this, but I gotta be honest, for all my experience in watches and clocks, I have no idea what this is. You gotta tell me this story.
Yeah, this was an antique store find. It's a Tiffany travel alarm clock, battery powered, but it's signed on the case with New York Times. So this must have been a corporate gift of some sort. I thought this was just such an interesting find to see both these things together because they're both just staples of New York City. Tiffany and New York Times. I grew up with my mom reading the New York Times every single day, doing the crossword puzzle. Right now we're on a 351-day Wordle streak from the New York Times. So this reminds me of my mom a lot. I have this on a shelf in my apartment. I can't even find a battery for it, honestly. I have no idea what the alarm sounds like. One day I'll have to find out. But it's just a reminder of New York City, which, even after going to Tokyo, I still love New York City. And it reminds me of my mom and kind of the cool history of Tiffany and whatever story that might exist of how these two things ended up on the same travel clock.
So you love Japan, but you'll always heart New York.
Yeah, we do have the best restaurants in the world.
That is a fact. And this thing gets even weirder because it's got a tritium signed dial on it.
Yeah, with the T, right?
Oh yeah. Not Tiffany signed, it's that too. It's tritium, it's times, and it's Tiffany, it's triple T. We have a whole new category of collectible. Now, I would say your codes as a collector, your foundation and rules don't change, but your tastes do. You were a Royal Oak guy from very early on, but you told me you never thought you'd be an Offshore guy.
Absolutely, yeah. This is my most recent purchase. This is the Offshore Ghost in titanium ceramic, 42 millimeters. I did not think I'd ever own an Offshore. I thought they'd be too big. I still think they're too big, but I think this is the perfect one for me because it gives all the illusions you need to make it feel smaller than it is. First, it's titanium ceramic, which is very light. It's monochromatic, which makes it feel smaller. And also, because it has a two-tone case, this part of the case and the bezel makes it look like only it's this thin,
It does look a lot thinner.
Yeah, and I love, it gave me an opportunity to enjoy the design of the Royal Oak in a new way. And because it's so vastly different, I don't have anything on a rubber strap besides the G-Shocks, and it's so different from a styling perspective than the 15300, I'm able to enjoy this, without that kind of parody feeling. These crown guards are so sharp. They just remind me of like a Lamborghini Urus, just chunky and angular. When you wind this thing, you cut your fingers. It's so sharp. And
that's an interesting way of describing endearment. It's so sharp it cuts me.
Yeah, the best, those, toxic relationships where you love it so much because it hurts. It's
Love
like
hurts.
that. Yeah. And I didn't know if I could pull off a watch this big because even though it's 42, it's, lug to lug with the strap, it wears very big. The salesman that I bought it from, my friend Brad, allowed me to take this to lunch with me. So I got to kind of feel what it would be like in everyday life, feel is the size going to be too big? And since then, I really haven't been able to take this off since I bought it. I think it's a great summer watch. I don't think I'll be able to wear it when I'm wearing long sleeves at work again. But in these hotter days, I'm going to enjoy wearing this on the rubber strap. I really love the look of this.
So this is the latest conquest, latest and greatest in many ways. Do you have a Grail? Do you have candidate Grails?
So the basic answer is that this 15300 is my Grail in the fact that it's the most perfect watch for me. However, if I'm being hypothetical and spending other people's money, I think the things that I really like about this hobby is hot horology, which I'm lacking in right now. I know these are beautiful movements on the APs, but they're not as handmade or special complications as they could be. And I've always loved tourbillons. My favorite part is that you don't have to set them. You just wind them and they start going. I had that perpetual calendar Patek, and it was a pain to set those little tiny sub-dials. So having a tourbillon, again, I don't like dead dials, and tourbillons are the opposite of dead dials. So if I had unlimited money, the Grand Seiko Kodo comes to mind, the Breguet Tradition tourbillon with the fusee and chain, love that piece. The Moser Streamliner Alpine, not an F1 fan, sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't even know how to pronounce it until I saw Edouard pronounce it. Their cylindrical tourbillon Streamliner in pink, that just hit me right to the heart when I saw that. So those are all extremely expensive watches. I think there's more affordable tourbillons that exist, from the likes of Angelus, even Moser, some of their tourbillons that aren't cylindrical and skeletonized are, very approachable and very cool. So I think one day I'd definitely love to own a tourbillon. Maybe not in the near future because I just bought this and this was a huge, chunk out of my, financial responsibility. But definitely one day I would love to have a tourbillon.
Well, I'm so happy to hear someone say that his Grail is on the table, because sometimes happiness really is about loving what you've got. Chris, this has been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's been a pleasure to be here.